Good night, sweet dreams, Billy. We love you. And don't forget to shine your shoes. I don't know whether people grow into their names or you fluke it and you name them right, but Billy was just looked like a Billy, you know, a little blonde, beautiful looking little boy, a little bit mischievous, but never getting into too much trouble.
Miss Blackwell's the best teacher ever.
So's Miss Penny.
And Billy really likes Jessica.
As kids, him and Jessica were always really, really close to each other.
We used to get to that point where we'd actually torture each other that much that we'd cry. And Mum would always be like, what are you two doing again? I used to tell him that he was adopted a lot.
Billy'd get upset and then I'd have to reassure him, no, you're not adopted, Billy. It's only just being silly.
When I was in Big Brother, like my brother went, really? Seriously?
Billy Hardy again. Good footballer, Bill Hardy.
It's been a great day that everyone's got involved.
Billy just adored sport and anything to do with the ball, he'd be out there playing.
Probably would have been 19 when he first got to the football club. Had unlimited potential, really. Right from the start of the season, we made a conscious decision that we were going to go overseas for our footy trip. Billy actually won the best and fairest for the reserves that year.
So he was on very high ground, you know, feeling great for himself and was stoked to be going over there with all his mates. He was really close to all his footy mates.
So I told him to be careful and have a great time and knew it was a footy trip and they were going to play up a bit as they would.
We had plenty of drinking planned. Not too much else, really. A few other exercises. We did go whitewater rafting, drink bintangs and in pool bars and then head to the Sari Club pretty much every night. I remember hearing a bang, didn't take too much notice of it. Remember turning back to my beer to pretty much have a sip of my beer before it was just lights out. I just remember seeing fire all down my left side where the bars sort of were and just seeing people scrambling in every direction just to sort of try and get out of the place. Also I remember seeing, you know, people walking straight out from the front of the Sari Club on fire, hands outstretched, just, you know, obviously not being able to see where they were going or just trying to make their way out and get to safety, I guess. And just seeing those chaotic scenes, there was people everywhere going in every which direction. And I do remember looking sort of to the left and seeing what I thought was obviously a car, which obviously turned out to be the van, sitting right in front of the Sari Club and just burning in flames.
At Mum's house, the landline had been cut. They'd been digging out the front of her house. And apparently Billy had tried calling through. Now, if he had still been on the phone, would he have missed it? I don't know why he felt compelled that night to ring to say he was okay, but then he called his mate Jace to say, I can't get through to Mum's house. I don't know why, but tell them I love them.
And he told me, you know, he was having a great time. He was just heading out clubbing with some of his mates, heading to the Coorabah. He just said, look, he missed me and can't wait to come home, but he's having a great time and wish I was over there with him.
The phone rang quite early in the morning and it was the secretary manager of Southport Sharks and said, there's been a bombing in Bali.
We all congregated in the lounge room because we turned on the television and of course it was on every channel.
For all the prophecies about a terror strike in Australia, there is a dawning realisation that terror didn't need to come to the mainland after all. It found us where we are perhaps the most vulnerable.
And I rang every hospital because they brought him into Perth and they brought him into Darwin and people knew who I was eventually.
When Billy's mate Jason actually returned, I went to the airport hoping to greet my brother off the plane because I still thought he could be alive.
Last night, broke a stitch in your back. Did you? Came up with blood all through the bed.
Jason Pate's cut artery has prevented him from returning to work as a barman at the Southport Sharks clubhouse.
We obviously thought there was every chance that Billy could have been split up and was helped or was helping somebody else, and ended up going one of the other directions away from the Sari Club.
Maybe someone had picked him up on a bike and taken him into the hills, or if he was in a hospital and nobody recognised him, or, you know, I couldn't have any concrete idea until I had proof.
Dad and I went over to Bali 6 weeks after hearing the news that Billy was missing. They hadn't cleaned up the site even 6 weeks after.
And there was still burnt out cars, huge craters. I mean, the van was there.
So you were seeing the chaos, the debris all on one side, as if the bomb had ripped the whole place apart. Half the wall was over here, yet the bar was still in place. It was still fine. There was still beers, bintang, on the bar, like intact, half drunk.
We visited the hospital. I personally still saw body bags there.
We followed all of his movements. We went to where he stayed. We checked out where he'd been up in the hills in Ubud. We did a lot of things that he did to kind of trace his steps to experience maybe his last day.
I was lying on the couch and the federal police called up, or turned up.
And they said, I think you all need to sit down. And so I remember one of them broke the news and said, we found Billy's body.
I can't remember my complete words, but I gave them a serve. Because it had taken so long and all of a sudden we had to go there, and, you know, I gave them a serve because I thought, you know, we'd made the effort and they hadn't been making the effort to find him. And then halfway through doing that, something hit me and I thought, oh, and they stood there and took it. And then halfway through, I sort of thought about it and thought, what am I doing? You know, this is just out of bloody frustration, and this is out of not wanting to hear what they got to say. And I apologised.
Well, it was a relief, because at least that was the end of that stage. At least we knew that we could have a funeral.
The boys all decided to dress in Southport Sharks attire, whether it was football jumpers or the team polos. Knowing he loved his footy so much, it felt right to dress in the football club gear to say goodbye.
I got up and said some words, and it was honestly the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. But I had my mates behind me, you know, so it helped.
Thank you, Billy, Big Bill and Christine, for putting such a wonderful person on this earth. And although he's gone, he will live forever in our hearts. We love you, our brother Billy and I.
I really thought, I'm going to stand up here like a rock and be strong for my son, because I think that's the way he would want to see me.
Good night, sweet dreams, Billy. We love you, and don't forget to shine your shoes.
Don't forget to shine your shoes, because that's what I always used to say to him, and I say it every day. It's okay.
Well, I've still got most of his things. That's still being sorted. Hang on, maybe I should just check what before I actually say. It's a slow process. So the majority of the time, I'm happy in the way that I have memories from Billy, and they were all great memories. And I was very lucky to have a wonderful son.
The most benefit I got out of any trip and any time of going back was being able to have a drink with Billy Hardy Sr. And actually visiting the Sari Club site with Billy Sr. and the boys, and just shedding many, many tears at the site.
Will the 10-year anniversary make it any easier for my family or myself? Never. You think about it every day, one way or another. Now, whether it's because you see a photo, I mean, I haven't made a shrine or anything, but obviously you still got photos. He was my son. So whether you see a photo or you're shining your shoes or some other thing brings it to mind, it'll never get any easier.
It was really hard to get out of bed each day. It was really hard. As I say, like my mum and dad processed things differently, so they dealt with it differently. I know they were both devastated, of course they were. But because of my brother's closeness with me, I just didn't know how I was going to survive. And I think it had impact on my marriage breakdown. I really do.
He was my best mate. You can't replace a best mate. Back in the day, we called each other brothers, so we're all brothers, I guess, a group of brothers. Losing, sort of Billy, I guess I would refer to him as the older brother because he was the one that sort of, was the wisest of us all. So it sort of just pulled the family apart, I guess.
Billy was my idol, yeah. Father and son. And I mean, we're as close as a father and son could be.